June 19, 1944. 200 miles west of the Mariana Islands, Task Force 58 cuts through the Pacific in a tight, disciplined formation. USS Enterprise, USS Lexington, USS Bunker Hill, USS Yorktown, USS Essex, and 11 other American carriers. 15 flight decks in total, carrying nearly 1,000 aircraft. Vice Admiral Mark Mitcher commands the largest carrier force ever assembled, flying his flag from Lexington. This is the shield and spear of the American advance toward Japan. And this morning, it is about to become something else entirely: a killing field. Because out there, beyond the horizon, the Imperial Japanese Navy is coming, desperate, undertrained, and convinced it can still win one decisive battle to stop the invasion of Saipan. What Japanese naval aviators discover today will shatter everything they believe about air combat. At 7:30 a.m. in the ready room aboard the carrier Taiho, Warrant Officer Sakio Komatsu adjusts his flight suit and listens to the briefing. The message is clear: maximum strike. The Americans have been detected east of Guam, multiple large flat tops. The opportunity Japan has been waiting for since Midway. One decisive blow that could break the invasion and restore control of the Pacific. Komatsu's fighter carries a centerline drop tank, extending its range and turning it into a long-distance escort platform. Japanese doctrine still leans on the same foundations that produced victory in 1941 and 1942. Expert pilots, long range, tight formations, coordinated strikes. In those early years, the Zero seemed unstoppable. It outturned its enemies, it outranged them, and in the hands of a skilled pilot, it could dominate the sky through positioning and energy management, even when outnumbered. But that doctrine was built on something Japan no longer has: time. Task Force 58 represents a completely different philosophy of war. The American carrier fleet is no longer a fragile gamble. It is an industrial machine. 6 modern Essex-class carriers, plus older fleet carriers and light carriers, all protected by battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. American designers accept trade-offs: heavier aircraft, heavier ships, heavier protection, because America has learned the hard lesson of carrier warfare. You don't win by being perfect. You win by surviving long enough to fight again. And at the center of that survival is a new fighter designed for one purpose: to kill Zeros. The Grumman F6F Hellcat entered service in late 1943 as the direct answer to combat experience, built from pilot reports, battlefield lessons, and the careful study of captured enemy aircraft. It is not elegant. It is not delicate. It is brutal. With a Pratt & Whitney R2800 double WASP engine producing around 2,000 horsepower, the Hellcat can reach roughly 380 miles per hour and climb aggressively to altitude. It carries heavy armor protection around the pilot and vital systems. Its fuel tanks are self-sealing, and across its wings are 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns, each with deep ammunition reserves, capable of turning a lightweight aircraft into burning scrap in seconds. The Hellcat is the opposite of the Zero. Where Japan pursued lightness for range and maneuverability, America pursued power, durability, and firepower. And for the first time in this war, Japanese pilots are about to meet an American fighter that does not fear them. The Japanese strike forms in the air: fighters, dive bombers, torpedo bombers, waves built to overwhelm the American carrier screen by numbers and courage. But many of the men flying those aircraft are not the veterans of Pearl Harbor.
The attrition of 1942 and 1943, Midway, the Solomons, Santa Cruz, endless carrier raids, relentless American pressure has hollowed out the elite cadre that once made Japanese naval aviation so dangerous. By mid-1944, too many new pilots are arriving with sharply reduced training. Some have barely 100 hours in the air, some far less. Carrier landing practice is limited. Gunnery training is restricted by fuel and ammunition shortages. Many have never fired their weapons at moving aerial targets before entering combat. The difference inside a formation becomes deadly. A few experienced pilots trying to fight and lead at the same time, forced to protect wingmen who lack situational awareness and combat instincts. Meanwhile, the Americans have turned training into a system, a pipeline, a factory. Carrier qualification is routine, gunnery practice is extensive, tactics are standardized and drilled into muscle memory. And, most importantly, American pilots do not have to fight alone, because the American fleet can see them coming. On Yorktown, radar operators pick up the incoming raid at long range, well before visual contact. Fighter direction officers in combat information centers begin speaking into headsets with calm precision, turning raw radar plots into lethal geometry. Vectors, altitudes, headings, speeds. American fighters are not scrambling blindly into the sky. They are being placed. Each carrier's combat information center becomes a command and control engine. Fighter directors coordinate intercepts in real time. Fresh Hellcats climb into position above and ahead of the approaching Japanese formation. And when the enemy arrives, the Americans are already waiting. High, fast, and in the perfect place to strike first. The first Hellcats meet the raid in the sky west of Guam. The American fighters dive from altitude and attack from behind, using their speed to deliver slashing passes. This is not a turning fight. The Hellcat pilots refuse to play the old game. They will not bleed speed. They will not stay low. They will not chase a zero in circles until someone gets lucky. Instead, they attack like wolves. Dive, fire, break away, climb back into the sky, reset, and do it again. A zero pilot tries to force an overshoot, turning hard, but the Hellcat has power where the zero has delicacy. At higher speeds, the Hellcat remains responsive, while the zero becomes heavier, less stable, less forgiving. The American fighter stays with the turn long enough to line up the shot. Then the .50 caliber rounds arrive. Not a few, not a burst of hope. A stream of armor-piercing incendiary bullets that tear through thin aluminum, sever control cables, and ignite fuel. The Zero has no armor to protect its pilot, no self-sealing tanks to contain the fire. When the rounds hit the wrong place, the aircraft doesn't limp away. It explodes. Japanese pilots witness this again and again. Fighters dying in seconds, bursting into flame like paper. And with every burning aircraft, something breaks. Not in the metal, but in the mind. Because this isn't how it's supposed to be. The Zero is supposed to dominate. The Zero is supposed to win. Commander David McCampbell leads Hellcats in coordinated attacks, holding strict energy discipline. His pilots work as a team. Wingmen protect leaders. Sections support each other. Radio calls are clear and constant. Every move practiced and drilled. Japanese formations struggle to respond. Their radios are often unreliable. Some pilots fly with radios disabled to reduce interference, relying on hand signals that vanish in the chaos of combat. Tight formations become liabilities under coordinated attack. The moment the formation breaks, inexperience becomes lethal. and the Americans can tell immediately. The enemy's evasive maneuvers are predictable. Gunnery is erratic. Pilots lose position. Some panic. Some fly straight and level like targets. Some abandon the mission entirely, trying only to survive. In minutes, the sky is full of parachutes, smoke trails, and falling wreckage. The first wave is shattered. Then comes the second wave, larger, more desperate, launched in hopes that sheer mass can force a breakthrough. But the result is worse. Radar warning gives the Americans time to refuel, rearm, and relaunch fighters. Fresh Hellcats are already climbing, while returning fighters land, refuel, and go back up again. The American fleet cycles aircraft smoothly, like gears in a machine. The Japanese arrive in scattered groups, some delayed, some lost, some fragmented by navigation errors and fuel limits. Instead of hitting the fleet all at once, they arrive piecemeal, and each group is destroyed in turn. Those few aircraft that reach the task force fly into a wall of anti-aircraft fire, radar-directed batteries, and proximity-fused shells that detonate with terrifying efficiency. Torpedoes miss, bombs fall wide, attacks collapse into chaos, and still the Hellcats keep coming. For Japanese naval aviation, the shock is total. Their weapons do not work the way they need them to. Their fighters cannot force the kind of dogfights they trained for. And the enemy aircraft, the Hellcat, doesn't behave like a wildcat. It climbs harder, it dives faster, it takes punishment, it keeps flying, it fires longer bursts, it shrugs off rifle-caliber hits that might have crippled lighter aircraft. Where the Zero can be killed with seconds of concentrated fire, the Hellcat often survives hits that would destroy a Japanese fighter outright. The imbalance is so severe that by midday, Japanese carriers begin counting the empty spaces on their decks where aircraft should have returned. Mechanics stand idle. Armorers have nothing to load. Pilots who expected victory return exhausted, shaken, and traumatized. Many do not return at all. And while the air battle rages, disaster strikes below the surface. American submarines, positioned along the likely approach routes, find their own targets. One of Japan's most important carriers is hit by torpedoes in the same crucial hours the air battle is being lost. Another suffers catastrophic internal explosions after a single torpedo ruptures fuel lines and vapors spread through the ship. The Japanese carrier force is not just losing aircraft, it is losing ships, platforms, crew experience, the infrastructure of carrier warfare. By afternoon, American search aircraft finally locate the retreating Japanese fleet at extreme range. Mitcher makes the call.
Launch the strike. It's risky. It means American aircraft will return after dark. It means pilots may ditch in the ocean. It means losses from fuel exhaustion and night landings are likely. But the chance to finish the enemy is too valuable to ignore. So the American carriers launch again. Fighters, dive bombers, torpedo bombers, pushing to the edge of fuel limits to hit a fleet already staggering from the day's destruction. The attacks damage and sink more ships, and as night falls, American pilots begin running out of fuel on the return flight. The radio fills with urgent calls, engine quitting, going in, ditching, send help. And then comes one of the most famous decisions of the war. Mitzer orders the fleet lit up. Turn on the lights. Searchlights, deck lights, star shells, every ship glowing like a floating city in the black Pacific night. An enormous risk in submarine-infested waters, but a lifeline for the pilots. Many aircraft land on any deck they can find. Some crash, some ditch. Destroyers race to pick up survivors.
The fleet bleeds aircraft but saves men. When the battle ends, the numbers tell the story of something unprecedented. Japanese losses catastrophic, hundreds of aircraft, and with them hundreds of pilots that Japan cannot replace in time. American losses far smaller, many due to operational hazards rather than enemy action. But the true outcome is deeper than numbers, because what dies in this battle is not just Japanese aircraft, it is Japanese naval aviation as an effective offensive weapon. The myth of the Zero, the idea that Japanese skill and a lightweight fighter could dominate any opponent, collapses in a single day against an enemy that refuses to fight on old terms. And the Hellcat becomes the symbol of that collapse. Not because it is graceful, but because it is honest. It does what it is asked to do. It survives, it kills, and it brings its pilots home.
The Battle of the Philippine Sea proves something brutal about modern warfare. Courage is not enough. Tradition is not enough. Even experience can be made irrelevant when the enemy changes the rules. Japan built an elite system that produced exceptional pilots and a fighter optimized for a specific era, an era where range and maneuverability mattered most, where the pilot's skill could overcome material disadvantages. America built a system designed for endurance, training pipelines, mass production, standardized maintenance, radar integration, fighter direction, damage control, and aircraft designed to protect the pilot as much as to destroy the enemy. It is industrial war meeting warrior tradition, and industrial war wins. On June 19, 1944, Japanese naval aviators discover that the age of the Zero is over. The dark blue Hellcats of Task Force 58 do not just outclass them, they hunt them, methodically, relentlessly. And by the end of the day, the Imperial Japanese Navy understands the truth. The sky no longer belongs to them, and it never will again.